This time we're on the back pocket. I think that maybe these horizontal videos will be back pocket videos. And today we're here to talk about prototype versions of knives and why, in my opinion, CJRB is the coolest Chinese knife manufacturer. And that is in part because they sell their prototypes. Now, I don't know why they sell their prototypes. They probably shouldn't. Other companies don't sell their prototype versions of knives, and that's because a lot of times the full production run has changes. You make a prototype, and you don't make a lot of them either. To my knowledge, you make a small batch of prototypes. You see if anything needs to be changed. If the answer is yes, then the production run of the knife is in some ways a different knife for one reason or another than what the prototype was. So a lot of times companies don't sell their prototypes. CJRB does, and I ain't going to stop them. In fact, I'm going to purchase as many prototypes as they allow me to. I see the notification on Instagram and they post, hey, prototypes of this knife are available. I rush over and try to scoop a few up. And the reason you'll see is that in many instances, the prototypes are exclusive versions. And in my opinion, are going to be more rare than any limited edition knife that they make otherwise. And what started it all off for me was the Hectare. The Hectare is a knife that, was designed with a thumb stud in mind. The prototype of this knife is a thumb stud version, and the Hectare was CJRB's first crossbar locking knife, so the first of their knives with this mechanism. And when the knife retailed, the production run, instead of having the thumb studs, it had a blade hole like these guys here. And because of the slim line kind of profile of the knife, people were having a hard time, fitting their finger in the hole because they didn't have a lot of extra room. So some people were like sanding down the edges of their handles here. It was a thing. Clearly it was designed with thumb studs in mind, but then when the knife came out, it had a blade hole. And that's why this knife is, rare, in my opinion. It's unique and interesting because it's different than what was inevitably released. Now, eventually they did re-release the Hectare with like a Pyrite-looking blade, and that did have thumb studs. So, you are able to purchase a thumb stud Hectare, but not with a drop point blade. Next up is another kind of prototype exclusive, and that's the Shale. The Shale is a knife that prototyped with a steel handle and then was inevitably released not only without the steel handle, it was G10, but also without the button lock. They switched it to a crossbar lock, at some point. But that means that my prototype versions of the Shale are the only button locks that you're going to see. I mean, it's, I think, a shame that they didn't release as a button lock as well. I think these would sell really well. I'm not the kind of guy who needs like the sturdiest locking mechanism. I mean, I own a fixed blade. If I was really going to be hammering down on something, I'm not going to use a plunge lock, but I use slip joint knives every day with no issues, and those don't lock at all. So, not only is the button lock just a very convenient and fidgety and enjoyable mechanism, but also the steel handle makes this thing feel like a tool. I mean, it's got some heft to it. It's got a really nice kind of ramp for your thumb, and whether it's in the black coated version or just the stonewashed stainless steel, I really think if CJRB's listening, they need to re-release this knife and make it available for everyone, because I think it would sell really well. Next up is another button lock that became a crossbar lock on its production run, and that's the Prado. I believe it's pronounced Prado. I could ask Ray Laconico, who designed the knife, but for now we're going to call it the Prado. And this prototype is very unique because none of the other versions of this knife came with this shredded carbon fiber. I really like the red mixed in with the shreds. This thing looks badass. This is one of my coolest looking knives. It's got really good action. It's got that, that good button lock. There are some, mushy button locks. This ain't one of those. This also came out in a black G10, And then the production run of the knife was available as a black G10 just like this, but the prototype is the button lock version. They did re-release this knife as a button lock, so maybe there's some hope for the Shale to do the same. And the button lock version of the Prado now has the contoured micarta scales, and then also the new steel, the SF2 spray form steel. Anytime there's like a black G10 with a satin blade available, I'm going to go for that one. So in the Prado, the mini Pyrite and the large alt Pyrite, I've got the same kind of colorway here. I think these two next to each other look super cool. Be an unnecessary carry to have both of these on you at the same time, but you would look like a badass. Now, what's interesting about the mini Pyrite is that the prototype had the G10 handle scales, and then when this knife, was released, the production run had aluminum handles. So to my knowledge, this is the only way you could get a G10 mini Pyrite is by, having purchased one of the, I assume, very few prototypes. With the large alt Pyrite, people waited like a year for this to come out, and unfortunately, they missed the boat on the large alt Pyrite hype. People moved on to other knives, but the prototype, when it came out, had G10 scales with nested steel liners inside, and the new version that was available and is still available for purchase is like 20% longer. Like, they made the knife bigger. So the prototype is not only an exclusive handle because the production run has steel handles instead of the G10, but this is also its own unique size of Pyrite that they've, never made again. I think if they made this knife exactly as the prototype, people would buy it more. I think the large alt Pyrite with the steel handle might be a little too big and a little too heavy because of its size. This is perfect. It's a perfect pocket knife. They should have just went with this. And then they could have made it with aluminum as well. So this, I picked up a couple of the prototypes whenever I can. This prototype of the large alt Pyrite has aluminum handles, aluminum scales, and nested steel liners in there, and RPM 9 steel coated black. This prototype is the only aluminum alt Pyrite, and I think it's a shame. They really should have went with more of these. People would buy these. I mean, it's a little smooth. You can get those like stick-on grips, but I think it looks cool. It's my Halloween knife. All right, coming up on the end here, 3 left to go. This is a Sanford Owen design. It says S. Owen on there. This is the Kain, Kain. And when this knife was released, it had G10, black on black, but not the aluminum handles. This has aluminum scales, and the aluminum is exclusive to the prototype. Just think it's kind of cool. Another thing that's exclusive to prototypes is the Space Cowboy in titanium. The titanium scales on this flipper action CJRB knife, which was designed in part by Ferrum Forge, released as a G10 handled knife. It was still a button lock, but never came out as a titanium. Like, they never did a premium version. I don't have a lot of flipper knives, and I don't love the kind of down-swept flipper, but it does work. And I think the Space Cowboy is either a Cowboy Bebop reference, if you're into that anime, or just because it makes like a trigger here. Maybe it's like a trigger reference. I don't know. But I think it's cool. It's one of my rarer knives. You're not going to see one of these anywhere else. And then the last one here, this is the Nanner, CJRB Nanner, and this is a prototype version. The full production run of this knife is not available at the time that I'm making this video, but in my YouTube comments, when I first showed this thing off, the designer, his name is Dustin Rhodes, and that's his maker's mark there with the feather duster there. He commented saying that the production run of this knife is going to be about 20% larger. So another situation like the large alt Pyrite, where the prototype, for whatever reason, is scaled down, or they just decided to make it bigger after holding a prototype in hand. So in that regard, the Nanner is a prototype exclusive in this size. So yeah, those are my prototype CJRB knives that changed before the full production run. Let me know what you think, and if this is as interesting to you as it is to me, or, you know, am I alone in thinking this is pretty cool? All right, see ya.